Good morning and welcome to everybody who's joined us for our bit of a certification roundup. Very cozy session so far. We have exactly three people joined us, but that's fine. We might as well all come to my house and have a cup of tea and talk about it. We'll just give it a couple of minutes as people, hopefully, there you go. We've already added 25% to the hit count as people find their way and work their way into WebEx. I hope everybody's having a good week thus far. I know I certainly am, but that's mainly because I'm on holiday in a week or so. So the countdown has begun.
It'll make a lot of people very jealous, Gary.
Yeah, I got to come to Melbourne to see you next week first, though, but then off to Exmouth for a week in the sun.
Oh, nice.
People are just starting to fill up the session now, which is great. Done all the checks. I've got a glass of water. I've been to the loo. My headphone is fully charged. I haven't closed the door, so if the dog starts barking, so let's just solve that problem. And at what is now 1 minute past the hour, we will crack on. Hello, thank you to everybody who has taken the trouble to jump on to the session today. Hopefully you'll find this interesting, informative, amusing, help you sort of sort out in your own mind what you think or don't think about Microsoft certification in particular for this session. And it's great to see us break into double numbers. And if I click on here, I should be able to advance. Now, today's session, the biggest question we always get asked is the session being recorded? Yeah, absolutely, the session is being recorded. But you know what? If you leave us and think, oh, I'll just watch it later, you might not find out about our special offer, which is the salesy bit at the end of this deck. I am beautifully supported in this session by a gentleman called Leif, who you'll get to know a little bit better later on. He has been there, written the book on some of this. He looks after Microsoft as a vendor for me. He's very happy to answer questions via the chat feature in WebEx, and if it's really significant, he may even interrupt me and say, Gary, answer this question, or Gary, we need to know about this. I only have one ask. It's not a salesy session. My only ask is you complete the survey after the event, just really to help us understand whether this was relevant, how good it was, how bad it was, and you can be brutally honest. We can absolutely take it. And with that, I will issue you an official welcome from me. My name is Gary Duffield, or as I like to call myself, Gary Duffield, MCP, CNI, A+ certified, ITIL, Prince 2, and a bunch of other things. I have been around for an awful long time and achieved a number of certifications along the way. What I wanted to do in this session is really put out there a clearer understanding of what certification means when we're thinking about Microsoft certification in particular. Microsoft have been around for 50 years. Its certification programs have been around almost as long. And there's a little bit of confusion. There's a little bit of, not real understanding as to how the thing is structured. But first, I'd like to offer you a huge welcome to Lumify. You may have known us in the olden days as DDLS, Dimension Data Learning Solutions. We've been around 30 years and we have trained and certified generations of people. I met a CIO of a bank recently who was a NetWare CNE with us many moons ago. We're very proud at what we do for Microsoft. We won the 2024 MCT Quality Award for this area, basically meaning, as measured by the people who actually get the training, we were at the top of the heap. We're also the first Microsoft Training Center in ANZ, which we're quite proud of as well. So you're in very good hands. We do this. This is what we do for a living. We have a team of professionals, myself, Leif, sales teams and trainers who are all sat back waiting and ready to support you. Now, there's one advantage working for Australia's largest training provider, and it's this. We're working with, I think, 98% of the top companies in Australia when we last did the calculations. We have a really good understanding as to what's happening out there in the market right now. So just to give you a quick snapshot in terms of your journey to awesome certification, we are seeing technical certification grow year on year. There was a period of time where technical certification, people had fallen out of love with it, but if I look at the number of exams that we sell for technical certification, it's growing year on year. What I find particularly interesting is that in the process space, so ITIL and Prince 2, for example, certification is about 98% of the people we train actually go and do the certification. And in cyber, it's also particularly strong. A lot of the people want to do the certification. And if I ask myself why, it's probably because in those domains, you almost need to be able to validate the skills that you've got in order to get onto the project team or to get into the role that you're particularly chasing. If I look at what's hot right now in our business, service delivery and ITIL is our single most popular course, saying very clearly there's demand for that in the ANZ market. But also we're seeing exponential growth for AI. We did an AI webinar recently. We had 2,000 people register and we panicked because our WebEx instance only supports 1,000 people. Unfortunately, only 1,000 turned up. Cyber and cloud are also top performing, but we don't stand still because the market's asking for it. We've added Scaled Agile, we've added ServiceNow. We are now the only delivery partner for VMware and also a delivery partner for Red Hat. If any of that is of any interest, not the purpose of this session, but very happy for the team to reach out and have a deeper conversation with you. When we think about certification, it kind of started with a badge, with a Novell badge, and I hope you appreciate that image that I knocked up. The Novell Certified Network Engineer, for I am one of them. Way back in 1990, I actually achieved that. It was really the first mainstream technical certification. Whilst there were others prior to that, the reality was with the arrival of Novell's NetWare product, networking for the masses really started to take off, and Novell really heralded the rise of those vendor-led certifications. CNEs were very highly regarded, they were very much in demand, and the vendor very quickly realized that certification drives adoption. The more people who have your certification, the more they evangelize about your product. It's unfortunate that there weren't enough to save Novell. They ultimately went out of business, and as we all know, Microsoft and Windows Server and Active Directory ultimately ruled the roost. But the reality was it all started way back when. There are a generation of today's IT pros, including myself, who were certified network engineers from way back in the depths of time. But sitting back and watching all of this unfold was clearly Microsoft, and Microsoft wanted, a piece of the action, as it were. In 1992, a couple of years after the CNE was launched from Novell, Microsoft actually came up with what they called the Microsoft Certified Professional. That was the bottom of the ladder in terms of certification, and it kind of still is today. You do a single exam, you can become an MCP. Way back then, there was LAN Manager. Who remembers that? You may have spotted I had the badge for LAN Manager. There was Windows 3.1 and SQL Server. At least most of us have heard of SQL. There was some limits in terms of the technologies you could get certified in. Microsoft continued to develop and evolve its learning program, and way back in 1993, they actually launched the MCSE, the Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer or Solutions Engineer, or ultimately Expert, because people didn't like the use of the word engineer. But MCE became the de facto. It took over where the CNE had left off, and it did itself some good in that regard, and it did itself some bad. I can remember training in the 90s, people coming to the training centre in the UK and saying, I was a taxi driver last Friday, I've come and got my MCSE and now I want a job in IT. They made it a little bit too transactional in terms of how it was achieved. It did come back, but it was finally retired in 2020. Why was it retired? Limited flexibility. There's a one-size-fits-all approach. You were a systems engineer, and then they had systems engineer plus S plus I. It took an awful lot of work to achieve it. There was lots of exams, lots of investment in days training. You could potentially have to do 15 days training in order to achieve the Microsoft Systems Engineer. And at that time, it wasn't aligned to job roles. It was very much aligned to technology. And people didn't know how long it lasted. Do you keep this for life? Do you keep this forever? So Microsoft ultimately retired it. There may be people on this call now who are MCSEs or know people who've taken that certification. It was hard won, great to achieve, but then what happens after you pass it? They retired the MCSE in favour of, basically the model you can see on the right of this slide. They had this idea of a technology specialist and then IT professionals or professional developers. Unfortunately, being very transparent, all this did was confuse an already confused market. There was the MCSE, is it valid, is it not valid? It went away, it came back. It really just caused great confusion. And ultimately this model was retired as well. So there's no upgrade path from MCSE to anything modern. There's no upgrade path from what you can see on the screen now. But unfortunately, that didn't stop the market getting incredibly confused. And I popped on to Seek only, I think it was last week, 5th of March, I actually put the date down there. There's several organizations looking for people with relevant skills. And if you look just at the screenshot on the right there, they're looking for people with Cisco Cisco CCNA. Yay, hey, we can help you with that. We can train you for that. Microsoft MCSE and ITIL. Unless you happen to be about 45 years or older, you're very unlikely to have an MCSE these days. And yet that turned up in job advert after job advert after job advert. And that's really been caused by the confusion that Microsoft created with releasing the MCSE, modifying it, retiring it, bringing it back, bringing out something else. There is still a challenge with hiring managers as to, is that a current thing? Is that a thing? I think what was very clear was that Microsoft needed to draw a line under everything that's come before and start again. And they have very much done that. And we'll talk through the new model in a moment or two. But I think the new model is superb because it's related to role, which basically means the individuals posting these job adverts can now be very prescriptive in terms of the set of skills they want an individual to have. Looking at this advert, relevant certifications such as MCSE, that actually means nothing. It means you know potentially NT4. It means you potentially know Windows Server 2000. It means you potentially know IIS. You potentially know SQL Server 6.5 or Exchange Server 5.5. And if those numbers don't mean anything to you, congratulations, it means you're very young. But those of us who recognize those numbers know that those are products that used to arrive on floppy disk or CDs and then ultimately DVDs, and you won't find very much of it in the enterprise right now. So a clean slate was required. And they came up with a two-phased approach, two sides of the same coin, you could say. Now from our wonderful friends at Microsoft, there are certifications, which we'll clearly delve into as these slides get deeper, and also the idea of a credential. I just want to place the following idea in people's heads right now. So a certification validates a range of skills required for a specific job role. Forget what the job roles are. We'll come back to that in a moment or two. But basically, if you were a chef, that would test your ability to beat an egg, to use the cooker, to basically cook a piece of steak or whatever. A credential validates a very specific scenario or an applied skill. It's a thing that you do. So you may have a certification in chefiness, but you might have a credential in boiling an egg. I know that's possibly the world's worst analogy, and frankly, you're lucky because normally my analogies involve Bunnings. So there's at least a bonus there. The credential is specific to a business problem or a particular challenge. And again, a certification, it's more about that job role. There are various levels of certifications tucked underneath there, fundamentals, associate, expert, which we'll dive into in a moment or two. But I just really wanted to dwell on how you achieve each of these. If you're interested in a Microsoft certification, it's achieved by passing the required exam or exams. And that includes questions, potentially scenarios, even simulations, reflecting real world problems. A credential is achieved by doing an online on-demand assessment and completing a series of tasks in a sort of a lab kind of environment, but very specific in my analogy to boiling an egg. How long do you boil it for and where do you turn the cooker on, that kind of good stuff. The other difference is that certifications tend to have to be renewed yearly. Now, we're very happy to make this deck available. There's a couple of posters which actually give you some of the details in that, which I'm going to dive into over the following slides. So what does the new Microsoft certification model look like? Again, 18 people have jumped on this call. I don't know your backgrounds, don't know anything about you, but in terms of your current job role or your aspirational job role, if it involves Microsoft technology, then invariably it'll sit in one of the buckets you can see along the top of that screen. Infrastructure, which clearly means Azure, data and AI. AI is the topic of the week. We're seeing lots of demand for that. Could it be digital app and innovation? Could it be modern work? Or could it be business applications? Interestingly, at the moment, if I exclude the work we're doing on Copilot, the two most popular certifications in our stable sit in the infrastructure stack, and that's something called AZ104, which is around Azure and administration, and modern work, it's MD102. These numbers, if you work here long enough, they just trip off the tongue, which is all about sort of managing endpoints in the modern world, but a whole plethora of different subjects and technologies between those 2 points. When it comes to getting those certifications, there's a fundamental level, You can usually recognize those from Microsoft because they've got the number 900 after them. So AZ 900, for example, is a fundamentals level piece of learning around Azure. Great for giving you the background. And if you happen to be on this call and you're a CEO or a CIO, you don't need to know the details in the curly brackets about how stuff works, then the fundamentals is a great way to get that overview. If you're just starting out and you have aspirations of being an Azure engineer, but you pretty much know nothing right now, then again, fundamentals would be the way to go. Beyond that, Microsoft then breaks down into role-based certifications and courses. They usually have two letters, which aligns to the technology. So AZ would obviously be Azure. And I mentioned AZ 104 being very popular in the infrastructure stack. That's actually the Azure Administrator Associate. The AZ 305 is Azure Solutions Expert. So you can see there's a subtle difference there. Fundamentals provide that cross-sectional view of a technology, whereas the role-based ones get a little bit deeper around a specific job role, be it an administrator or an architect in the two examples I just shared. There are some specialty certifications. If I'm honest, we don't see an awful lot of demand for that in ANZ right now. So for example, there's a specialty certification in SAP workloads, and 10 points for Gary for not saying SAP. There's also another one in Cosmos DB and another one looking at virtual desktops. So you can see there's already a little bit of structure to this. MCSE one size fits all gets very confusing. In this brave new world, we've got this fundamentals level, and then we get this expert and associate level, whatever that may be. The audience for these new models are pretty much described on this slide, and I touched already on fundamentals. New to the subject, aspire to a career, maybe you're a senior member of staff, maybe you just need that helicopter view. If you want what they call an associate level certification, so this is now the first time we're actually diving into the structure beyond fundamentals, you have or will have a specific working role with the Microsoft technology. You've already got some experience and you may already be implementing and managing a solution. So if you are brand new, you don't go for the associate because it'll make wild assumptions, like, you know, a little bit of PowerShell, for example, add a curly bracket, and a lot of people run to the hills. So there are prerequisites in terms of your existing skill set. And you basically want to be able to implement, manage, and secure the related technologies, whether it's an associate in Azure or modern workplace or desktops, then it's about implementing, it's about managing, and it's about securing technology. And the reality is that is the majority of people who are working with that technology. You know, for every 10 administrators for Azure, you know, you're only going to have one architect, if any. Maybe you even outsource that. But the next level up, fundamentals, base level, associate, very specific to a role, deeper dive, hands-on, has prerequisites. The expert level, often the associate is a prerequisite for an expert level. You are really about advising stakeholders and translating business requirements into solutions. You are designing the thing that ultimately associate level individuals would actually manage. It's hard work to achieve them. The exams are not easy to pass. However, if you have that level of skill and you want it validated, then that is a way to do it. And we can talk a little bit later on, and we will talk later on the value. So what have I painted for you? I've painted two pictures really that we've been a long time getting here, from about 1992 to today, where we've got fundamentals, associate and expert level certifications. We've painted a picture that then these certifications are split into different categories. So infrastructure was one that we mentioned, business apps is another that we mentioned. How do you then start to drill down inside of that and actually work out what it is you want to do? So ask yourself the rhetorical question, I want to work with Microsoft technologies, or I do work with Microsoft technologies. What ultimately is my aim? What do I want to do? Is it just about removing risk, or is it about enhancing your own role? Is it about taking your organization to places perhaps it hasn't been with the technology? And whilst I don't expect you to be able to read the slide that follows, it basically is a snapshot of the new Microsoft certification model. Now you can see along the top, as we chatted, infrastructure, data, business applications, security. I didn't mention security before. That was a huge omission of mine. And then you've got various role-based certifications that you can get. And if you just look under the infrastructure column, we have Azure Fundamentals, AZ 900, the helicopter view, which we've talked about many times. We then have the Azure Administrator, AZ 104. We then have the Solutions Architect, AZ 305. two courses we've already talked about. There are certifications wrapped around those. In fact, those are the certifications. You become an Azure Administrator Associate, you become an Azure Solutions Architect, and maybe that's the end of your learning journey. Or perhaps you want to be an Azure Network Engineer Associate. Well, then there are courses that can obviously take you in that direction as well. So it really depends what it is you have in terms of a criteria for taking the skills. Now, let's just stop there and pause just for a second. You can do this learning. You can go read a book. You can get great hands-on skill. There's no requirement to do the certification. What I will argue from now until the end of this deck is, if you're going to put the investment in learning about AZ-104, for example, becoming skilled as an Azure administrator, why would you not just go the extra step, go do a single exam in that instance and achieve that certification? For me, it'd be the equivalent of, studying to do a degree and deciding at the very last minute, yeah, you know what, I'm probably not going to bother doing the exam. You've done the hard work, you've done the hard yards. What you need to be thinking at this stage of any technology skills enhancement that you want to do is, where is it you want to sit? Because I will say something else moderately controversial. In my day, and I am very, very old, in the days of the MCSE, you tended to be the master of everything. You installed the server, you managed the server, you set up IIS, you set up DNS, you set up WINS. There may be people thinking, oh gosh, blast from the past right there. You installed Exchange Server. In this new world, you might not have every single skill set across that particular technology vendor. It's a case of working out where your role lies and what training and certification relates to it. I'm very excited by the AI ones you can see in the data and AI field right now. As your AI fundamentals, we are literally doing hundreds of those. Also AI engineer associate or data analysis associate. If AI or Power BI is your thing, then there are certifications that wrap around them. Gary takes a pause for breath and takes a swig of water. Hopefully that's making sense.
Going well so far, Gary. We don't have any questions in the chat. Just to remind everyone, I am here. If you want to ask a question in the chat, I'm happy to have a look at those as we go.
Make him earn his money.
That's right.
But it's our pleasure to be here today for you guys. So use us as you so wish. So if those on the previous slide, that are the predominantly role-related training and certifications, the exception being the fundamentals level, which are that broad overview. What if you want something a little bit more specific? What if you wanted to defend against cyber threats with Microsoft Defender XDR? They have what they call a Microsoft applied skill. And although I've alluded to it in this session, I've not actually talked about it in any detail. This was the example where I said you only want to learn how to basically boil an egg. I know that's cheapening the deal a little bit, but there is a Microsoft credential. It is not a certification that you can actually take, which will help you. In my example, boil an egg. In this example, work with Defender XDR. They tend to be one-day events, and you actually do the assessment online, which we'll talk about in a moment or two. We're very shortly going to be combining these with our regular courses for no extra cost. So you'll do an AZ-104 and we'll include an applied skill as part of that event. So watch out for that in the coming weeks. There is a number of applied skills. This is a list, a partial list. In fact, there's no fixed starting point, unlike the previous certifications that we talked about, where you basically need a good level of knowledge to do an associate level training course / exam / certification. With these, it's all about where you currently sit and what you're trying to achieve. So if you want to implement a lake house in Microsoft Fabric, then there is a one-day session which might actually take you on that journey and give you some skills in how to do that. And you can then validate that by achieving a credential. So what do we need you to know right now? Certifications, role-related predominantly. Applied skills, which is the name we're calling them from this point forward, are credentials. They're very specific to a thing, boiling an egg in my really bad analogy, and you can, if you so wish, validate that you have those skills accordingly. This is all very well, Gary. He's just talking. Talking about himself in the third person. Go ahead, Leif.
I was just going to add on that slide, we don't actually have the course numbers on this view. Gary alluded before that the fundamentals certifications, they will have the 900 numbers against the course codes. The advanced role-based, which you'll get a certification aligned to, they'll have a 3-digit code. So it won't be a 900, it might be a 104 for the AZ104 or a 3-digit code after that. The applied skills courses will all have a 4-digit code at the end. So that's one trick to understand which one is an applied skill and which one is an advanced role-based, whether it be fundamental, associate, or expert and specialty level certification. So if you see anything with a, for example, PL 7008, so the 4 digits at the end, that's an applied skill.
That is a good call, Leif. Thank you for that. Or if you want to make it much simpler, just phone your local friendly Lumify office and we will happily talk you through it. Just for a second, I turned into a salesperson. I apologise. What does this mean for the individual? This is actually a slide I originally presented on certification 20 years ago. This guy was a trainer for us back then. He's now a senior guy at Microsoft and has no idea I'm still using his photograph 20 years on. From an individual perspective, you know, he could turn up for a project he wants to work on and say, "Hi, I'm a Microsoft certified professional systems engineer." Okay, thanks. There's no real way for me to understand as a hiring manager or a project manager what that actually means, what skills he's actually getting. He can still do that today. Remember the advert from Seek from a couple of weeks ago? You know, I think I'm still an MCSE somewhere. I could turn up and say, yeah, I'm an MCSE. I can devise your AI strategy going forward. It's kind of meaningless because it doesn't give you a great indication as to what the skill set is that this individual possesses. So if I spring forward to today, you know, this individual now working for Acme IT, he has got Azure fundamentals, he's got Azure administrator, he's got Azure solutions expert, he's got AI fundamentals. And I put a star next to that because, you know, that is the high level view. He's got Azure AI engineer associate. I can instantly tell that this individual will be well prepared to look after my Azure instances. He will be well prepared to talk to me about what we're intending to do around AI and start work on our, you know, our strategy around AI in the Microsoft ecosystem. But wait, he's even brighter than that. He's got some task-based credentials. Remember, we referred to these as applied skills. He's got securing storage for Azure files and Azure blob storage. Well, I'm already sold on that. And he's got some other differences as well. And he's got other certifications. He's got ITIL Foundation and Certified Ethical Hacker. So I get a good indication right now of what this individual is capable of and the value he might bring to my business. Now, he's worked hard to get those certifications. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to keep them forever. Microsoft now are fairly strict on the retirement because basically, you know, the product is enhancing every 6 weeks. We today still have issues where something that we taught on a Wednesday may have been improved by a Thursday because, you know, these products are evergreen. So what Microsoft have introduced is a recertification requirement. Now, fundamental certifications, AZ900, do not expire. Most other, in fact, I think every other certification must be renewed annually. There is no cost to renew, so it's not like you got to go do the training course, sadly, every year, and you have a 6 months window to renew. So you can see in the purple box at the top, the certification has been earned. The certification is active after the first 6 months. It then becomes eligible for renewal, which is done online. He has 6 months then to renew that and restart the 12-month clock ticking. If it is not renewed, it expires at 12 months and then we'd have to redo that certification. In theory, it's a cycle of continuous learning. And I will share with you that Microsoft are not alone in this. Other vendors, PeopleCert with ITIL, for example, also have a continuing certification requirement. And as I've also said, it's not easy to achieve this. There is a journey to go on in order to achieve these certifications. And if we look back at the previous slide, you know, we have a commitment there to renew 3, 4, 5 different role-based certifications would need to be renewed. So his investment in himself, in learning and staying up to date, is baked into this. And initially people thought that was a bad thing. I think it's a wonderful thing because if you want to keep those credentials, and frankly most people do, then you've got to commit to that cycle of continuous learning. You know, what's new, what's changed, what's happening, and you know, put a date in your diary. 6 months from today, I'll start thinking about doing the online recertification. As I said, it wasn't easy, and I jumped onto the Microsoft portal because one of the benefits of being certified is you get a shareable transcript that you can share with individuals. And this amused me, so it doesn't really add any value to this presentation. But on March the 22nd, which is pretty much, you know, anniversary's coming up, 19 years ago or thereabouts, I failed supporting Windows 95 at the bottom of that. Can you imagine the embarrassment of failing Windows 95? In those days, we had to learn about thunking and all kinds of weird stuff that the operating system used to do. But a few short days later, on the 28th, I redid it and passed. And that was the point I'd make. You know, if at first you don't succeed, give it another go. And there are ways you can buy exams where you get basically a second shot. It remains the hardest exam I have ever done. Microsoft TCP/IP for Windows NT. I failed that in April, passed it on April the 17th. And I said certifications expire. I was amazed to discover 2005, I achieved Microsoft Certified Learning Consultant status, and that is still active and signed by the current CEO. And I've subsequently discovered I'm the only one in Australia. So there you go. You have the unique experience of having some chat talk about boiling eggs and kitchens and chefs and exams and associate and experts by the only Microsoft Certified Learning Consultant in ANZ.
I'd hate to point it out to you, Gary, but it's not 19 years ago. It's actually 29 years ago. Sorry, mate.
Oh, God, jeez. Don't talk to me about life. Hey, all part of life's rich tapestry. I mentioned recently in conversation Banyan Vines to Leif, and he looked blankly at me. If there anybody in this call who remembers Banyan Vines, let us know in the chat now. But he's like, what the hell is Banyan Vines? And it's like, never mind, mate. You weren't alive at the time. Those are the days, my friend. I thought they'd never end, but they do, and they just keep getting updated all of the time. We did a bit of a survey as to why people bother and put the effort into achieving the certifications. And for reasons I don't understand, I just had an animation. This is kind of the list. In number one, equal to improve professional profile. You know, basically, I have this certification to increase knowledge. Well, that's a given, I guess. I'm glad that both of those are kind of equal. Increased chances of a salary increase. I suppose you're better armed to achieve that if you can march to your boss and say, I am a certified thingamajig. Increased chances of finding employment. Increased chances of getting a job promotion. If you go forward and there's you with your arm full of digital badges and certifications, and somebody who doesn't have those certifications, then clearly that puts you in a better position. Some people do it to gain entrance into their chosen field. Elsewhere in our business, we have Lumify Learn, which helps people who are new entrants. You know, perhaps they have been taxi drivers for years and want to get into this wonderful world. Well, it's a different learning experience to Lumify Work, which I represent. But you know, clearly those individuals want to switch horses. To recertify, quite a low number there, so people haven't quite warmed up to the need to do that. Some people like the challenge, and you know, frankly, I like number 10, just the bragging rights. You know, I can't pass anything without sharing it on LinkedIn 20 times in duplication.
Just to jump onto number 7 there was just a question in the chat, Gary, what is required to qualify for renewal? So I'll answer that question real quick. So obviously, to renew, you need to pass the certification in the first instance to be able to obviously qualify for renewal. To actually pass the renewal, it's a cut down version of the original assessment, and it may actually include a few updates or a few refreshed points that have changed as part of the core learning that you would have done in the ILT course or the course and study that you did to prepare for that first initial certification exam when you sat it. Now, I say the renewals are quite like a applied skills assessment, and I'll get onto those just to explain the difference of those in a few slides. But that's a great question from Paul on the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Love a bit of interaction. So based on a survey that we did, those are the top 10. You'll have your own motivations or even your own motivation for not doing it. When I talk to senior leaders and IT managers and CIOs, it can be almost polarizing. It's a bit like Vegemite, you know, either I'm all in, I believe in the value of certification, or I'm not going to do it because my staff will leave. Well, okay, fair enough. But if you don't train them, then maybe they'll leave anyway. There is a little bit of homework, perhaps. There are two great publications that I use pretty much all the time. One is called the ACS Digital Pulse from the Australian Computer Society that we partner with. Well, with getting hold of Digital Pulse, it gives you all kinds of data points on ANZ. A lot of the data generally is international, which means American and British. This very much looks at our market. But there's also a publication which I'll review every year. It's the IT Skill and Salary Report from Global Knowledge. They're a company I know and have worked with and alongside for many years. And I took these data points from that and I split them between certification benefits to the individual on the left and to the business on the right. And as far as the individual's concerned, and I just left his old logo on his jacket, the quality of my work has improved. 60% of people who had a certification said the quality of their work had improved. I'm more engaged with my work, 48%. I'm faster at performing my job. I can change passwords quicker, 43%. I'm certainly not going to read them all out to you, but you can see from an individual perspective, and there are a lot of people took part in the survey. From an organizational perspective, closing the skills gap and troubleshooting issues are kind of the top of the hill, if you like, and boost productivity. That's up there as well. You know, all you have to say to an IT manager is, hey, look, having this training and this certification is going to boost productivity. There's potential to work out return on investment, and you can actually do that if you really wanted to, but it's complicated, time consuming, and bizarrely expensive to do. There's a model called Kirkpatrick and Phillips which will walk you through that. Happy to have that chat another time about that if so desired. But you can see clearly there are motivators on both sides of the equation, both for the individual who wants to get certified. I have decreased errors in my work. Yeah, I'll take one of those. Or from an organizational point of view, meet client requirements. We tender for a lot of work, and we're always delighted to share all the number of certified Microsoft people we have in our business, the certified project managers, the certified in cyber people, the ISO certified individuals, because frankly, that helps us in the tendering process. We invest in our people, we invest in skills, and you'd be surprised if we didn't, because that is what we're in the business of doing. I did think, just to be topical and up to date so I can hang out with you cool kids, I'd ask AI what they thought about certification. So I asked Copilot what it thinks about certification. By the way, I also asked, based on what it knew about me, what it thought I should do for a living. And it suggested I would be a fantastic fashion buyer based on my acute awareness of what's going on. I live in the same pair of denim shorts and orange flip-flops that it clearly knows nothing about me. So we must generally disregard sometimes what AI thinks of us, but it put forward the value of IT certification being about money, being about career advancement, and interestingly, third, skills validation and specialization. But I know what you're all thinking now. You're all thinking, great, Gary, you've told us about fundamentals and associate. I kind of understand the model. I need to go and do some more research to see where I might fit in that. But when you've made the decision and you want to go do the certification, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Where do you click? What are your tips for success? And Leif has passed exams way more recently than me, so I thought I would afford him the opportunity to take the last 10 minutes or so of our allocated time to take you through. I can advance a slide if you tell me to do so, Leif.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Gary. If you can skip forward. So, as Gary said, I've taken and passed and failed a handful of Microsoft exams recently, and I'd love to share my story with you. Generally, they start with Azure. Azure is the platform. It basically hosts everything. Everything in the certification area in Microsoft is somehow connected to Azure. So usually most of the certification takers will start with the AZ900. My next journey after that went into Azure administration, and then it branches out from there into all the different areas that we've spoken about, whether it be the advanced-based certifications across the different solution areas, or it goes into some of the applied skills areas, and it gets quite task-based as well. So I think I just wanted to go across a few tips for success and kind of set your mind at ease a little bit in terms of what to expect when you go and take an exam, or what to expect from an applied skills assessment. Obviously, the best place to prepare is to utilize an MCT. MCT is a Microsoft certified trainer, and we have hordes of them here at Lumify ready to go. So we have them very, very contextually aware trainers who know their content, but also know the application of that content. So attend an instructor-led session, instructor-led training session, that's the ILT there, your best place to obviously get prepared for a certification. Book the exam is my next tip. It's funny how motivated you can actually get when you know there's a date that you've set to go and sit this thing. Until you book that exam, we all know about procrastination. You will sit there, you will dwell, you will twiddle your thumbs until you actually book that exam and know that there's a date, and give yourself a little bit of time, obviously, if this is setting yourself up for success. But book that exam, it will focus you. The exam, most people do them online these days, proctored from home or a home office or an office where you can lock yourself away and make sure you don't get any distractions. You can still find testing centres where Pearson VUE will be able to do a in-person exam for you. Resources. There are loads and loads of practice assessments for Microsoft certifications. There is a link there that I think I'll get Gary just to copy and put into the chat. That'll take you to Microsoft Learn, where there are a whole bunch of practice assessments that you can go through to get yourself ready. And I think the best thing that I learned from the practice assessments is actually what to expect in terms of the questions, how the questions are positioned, how they're phrased, and it teaches you, I guess, the language in the approach they take in terms of the exam questions and the not so much the applied skills, because obviously applied skills are very lab-based, very technical, but the multiple choice type questions, how they're phrased, how they're languaged. In terms of length, fundamental exams are roughly 45 minutes in duration. That's the expected time to go through them. It depends though, they're not all the same. So roughly 45 minutes to lock away and make sure you can get through the content. The associate and expert level exams without labs, roughly 100 minutes, and with labs, roughly 120. I say with and without labs because dependent on the lab availability, sometimes they'll be pulled from the exam, but they will always sometimes they'll be pulled for different reasons from the actual exam, but the exam will still be available, so you'll still be able to go and sit that exam. The caveat there is for applied skills. Applied skills use those lab environments. Where a lab environment is not available to host an applied skill, obviously then the applied skill cannot be taken because it is purely lab-based. In terms of breaks during the questions, yes, you can. Again, it depends. You can take a break during some of the multiple choice questions. Sorry, Gary's just put in there. Can't go. Oh, cool. No worries. I'll see if I can actually grab that link really quickly. You can take a break during the sessions, but the clock will keep ticking and you won't return to the same question. So if you hit the break button, you won't be able to actually return to the same place to make sure that you didn't go away and grab a book or consult a friend and come back with the right answer. So you cannot take a break during a lab-based session or a problem solution question set. So a problem solution question set is where it'll give you a whole bunch of information about the scenario and a whole bunch of questions aligned with that scenario. So you can't actually take a break during one of those because it will basically stop that section of the exam and you won't be able to go back to it. You will get enough upfront warning or upfront information as to how many lab-based assessments or how many problem solution sets and how many multiple choice questions form part of the exam that you'll be sitting because it will differ. So you will get all of that information up front. There won't be any surprises at the end. So, oh, by the way, a lab just pops up and you've got to go and do it. You will get the heads up notice and you will be able to prepare for that. So this is just a quick screen snip from one of the practice assessments for an AZ900. Again, this is a multiple choice question. Basically, it's quite short and sharp, and obviously just that multiple choice. Some of them will have multiple options where you'll need to choose 2 or 3 of the correct answers. Most of them will be a radio box where it is one answer for the question. Click your answer and hit next. And as part of the practice assessments, you'll be able to check your answer and get some feedback straight away. So it's a really good opportunity to go and check as you learn, as opposed to get to the end and try to remember what you answered. You will get feedback through the practice assessments.
Biggest question we have, Leif, and you may be able to update me here, is we get questioned on if you're doing it at home. Some people choose to do it at work. If you're doing it there, it's not that you're just doing it, you are basically being watched while you are doing that. Yes. And occasionally corporate firewalls won't let that happen. So it's better to probably do it at home, but you literally, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Leif, you literally have to show the world, with a webcam that there are no stuff stuck to the wall, they monitor your eyes to see if you're darting away to look at stuff. So it's pretty stressful, actually.
Yeah, no, you get enough warning though. I mean, smartwatches, you'll be asked to take those off. You'll be asked to sort of spin your laptop around at your work area where you're planning to take that exam, just to show there's no, cheat sheets on the wall or phones or anything, or books or anything nearby. So you need to try to clear a desk and obviously, if you're at home, just put a lock on that door and make sure no one walks in. So I've heard some horror stories where people have had some pretty bad experiences and not enjoyed it too much because they've been distracted or something's happened in the background. And unfortunately, the way that they are, that if that happens, there are cases where an exam might need to be cancelled and reattempted in that case. So if you are doing it from home, lock yourself away, give yourself the time to obviously focus, clear your desk, take off your smartwatch, and away you go.
And in some instances, you can access some parts of Microsoft's technical websites, or Microsoft Learn, basically, for some of the courses as well. So it's kind of not necessarily open book, but there's a limited open web for some, and you'll find out when you book the exam whether that's a thing or not.
Yep. And some of the lab-based questions, also the applied skills assessments, they will actually provide some context around what you're trying to do and kind of guide you through it. So there is a lot of information available. And again, it is always it depends, because some exams will provide you a little bit more access than others to be able to have that context or that supporting material to get through it. But they are very, very well set up. And I've done my handful, and like I said before, I've passed many and I've failed a few. And learned a lot in the process. So any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment.
No,
so
thank you for sharing that link. You truly multitasked there, and we made it to 20 attendees, which was our bet in terms of the number of people who turn up. And we genuinely appreciate everybody turning up, and we'd love to know. Please keep in touch. Find us on LinkedIn. Let us know if you choose to do an exam. Although we're kind of coming to the end of the formal delivery, we did think you might be interested in, he says, clicking the machine and having nothing happen, in a couple of offers that may be of relevance to you. Leif looks after Microsoft for me. He's also recently introduced AI certs into the Australian market. And Leif.
Yeah, so obviously thank you for attending. Really great to have the questions on the chat and everybody jump on. If you are interested in the AI certs portfolio, obviously that is all about AI. AI, Gary mentioned earlier, is very much the hot topic at the moment. So reach out if you're interested in getting across that. Vendor agnostic AI general certification training. We do have some offers in the market with some 50% off discounts in terms of launching that product in the Australian region. From Microsoft specific, if you book any of the applied skill, sorry, I'll say that again. If you book any of the advanced role-based courses, which, as I said before, the 3-digit courses, more of the associate or expert specialty level advanced role-based courses, book one of those and we will throw in the applied skills credential and course with that connected to that for free. So you'll basically get a buy one, get one free to go and learn what you can do in the sort of more theoretical based advanced role based course, and then really complement that with the skills in a specific skill set as part of the applied skill credentials. So take advantage of that really to practice your skills that you've just learned. And over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Leif, for that. That brings us pretty much exactly on time. It's almost like we're professionals at doing this. That brings us pretty much to time. As I said, if you have any questions, I don't think you can take yourself off mute in this instance of WebEx, but feel free to type them into the session. If you've got a story you'd like to share about certification, if you hold any certifications, I'd love to know if there's any CNEs or CNIs on the call right now. I'm going to bet not. But it's been our absolute pleasure to take you on this journey, and genuinely, I hope it was useful. If it was, please let us know.
Thank you.
Oh, we got a CNE. Yay!
Hey, Paul. Well done.
We will send out a link with the recorded session, and also perhaps some of the links that we've mentioned that people have requested. Thank you for your feedback, Catherine. That was very much appreciated. Rest assured, I shall be following you up immediately.
Great to have you here, Catherine. Nice of you to join us.
Shane, great. Thank you for your feedback. Really appreciate it. Who knew there'd be slides in this deck that are over 20 years old?
And badges that are over 30.
Yeah, no, God. I did think about getting my wad of paper-based certificates out and saying, hey, look at me, aren't I clever? But chose not to, because who cares that I'm NFS certified, OS2 certified, Compact certified.
One day those certifications might come in handy.
You never know.
Thanks, Gary and Leif. I'm kind of going to intervene here because I still want to try and get a survey through before everybody jumps off.
Cool.
So those of you who are still joining us, thanks so much for staying on. We would love to get your feedback as always, just how you found the webinar. So I think, no more questions or anything coming through, team. So I think I might call it here. Thanks again, Gary. Thanks, Leif. Always nice to spend some time with all of you. And again, just quick survey, just let us know how you found the webinar with us today. We'll catch you again soon.
You're just so bossy. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Justine.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.